Viva Chile, viva Chile, a Chile quiero.
Welcome to Red Hot Chile. This is your host, Dr. John Cobin, coming to you from Santiago de Chile in beautiful South America. Actually, not all South America is as beautiful as Chile. There is really nothing I've seen in the world more beautiful than this country. Argentina comes close in some places, but really a great place to be. A very warm summer day. I know that some of you are beleaguered up there with not only your horrible governments in the Northern Hemisphere, but also in the land of the free, especially in Western Europe. You have plenty of other problems with the cold, but not here. We got about 30 to 35 degrees centigrade. It's about somewhere between, I'd say 86 and 95, 97 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's been quite warm in Santiago, and with these continuing fires, it's been a little bit smoky in the air too, some parts of Santiago. But anyway, great, beautiful weather otherwise. And hopefully this New Year's video, we're going to be recording this as well on for YouTube, so that people can get a glimpse of Red Hot Chile. I know the backlighting is not very good today for folks watching the video because the sun shines right behind me as we look out across the city of Santiago, as you can see there from the 12th floor apartment. At any rate, we've got some interesting things to talk about today on the show. We're going to be dealing with some of the current events you've probably heard about going on in Chile, as well as another good Freedom Orchard update. Some good news going on there as we move ahead with our sustainable community. And we want to remind folks, if you're interested in talking or asking a question on the show, send an email to chileadvisorygroup@gmail.com, chileadvisorygroup@gmail.com, and there you'll be able to get your question and comment into me, and I'll be able to read it on the air. We'll be right back again with the show in just a second. All right, and welcome back to Red Hot Chile. This is your host, Dr. John Cobin. Really glad to be the #1 show finally on the Overseas Radio Network. December, of course, is a month in which there are only half the shows that are being played live during the month. They give us a 2-week break, and so you end up having a significant decrease in listenership. But still, Red Hot Chili ended up being the top show for the month, and it was already close to being the top show. But I really appreciate that. I appreciate your support as a listening crew, and I hope the show's been interesting and informative for you. And glad to see that we're in the number 1 position. Hope we can maintain that. I know there's a couple other good shows on the Overseas Radio Network to compete with, at least. And so, at any rate, that's one piece of good news I was really glad to hear. We also, I'm going to start the show off today a little unusual with the slang words. You know, some people wonder, where do you get these slang words from? This is a book you ought to get. If you're looking on the YouTube video, you should be able to see this book. And that's a book that you want to have, especially after your Spanish gets a little more advanced here in Chile. How to Survive in the Chilean Jungle, #2. And the book's a bit dated now. It's like 15 years old or so, but still the words that are used in the book are still very, very common. There are more slang that are not included in this that have come up more recently, I suppose. But I do get, I know a number of these slangs, but rather than invent my own definitions, I prefer to just read them out of the book. So it's a lot better. Or I get it directly from my wife, who also is a good walking dictionary for slang words here in Chile. Here's one that you'll hear frequently. No hay de qué. No hay de qué. Don't worry about it. It's nothing. That's what it means. No hay de qué. And you can also, if you want to say worry about it, not instead of negative, don't worry about it, you can say hay de qué. You'll hear that too. But normally it's no hay de qué. It's a response to thank you after one has done something. And so you'll hear that. No hay de qué. Another word that's interesting that you'll hear occasionally is hijo de tigre. It means son of a tiger or son of tiger. And that's a word, that expression that means that a boy. You know, go get him, that a boy, kind of like that. So hijo de tigre, you'll hear that occasionally here in Chile. All right, well, that's enough for today's slang words. We'll come back every week and give you a couple more as you begin to the practice of learning Spanish, and before you come down, and if you can. As far as I'm concerned, in my experience, people get Rosetta Stone and a number of other items thinking they're going to get prepared and boned up on Spanish before they get here. And I'd say almost every case, it amounts to very little value, all of that stuff. Nothing compares to being here and being forced to speak in Spanish. You're going to pee your pants unless you can ask where the bathroom is and make yourself understood and understand what they say back to you, or at least when they point. That's where the real rubber meets the road. It's easy if you're up in your northern hemisphere palace there, listening to the different kinds of products that are available and being sold to consumers. And I'm actually getting some of this. I'm learning a few words, a few vocabularies. It's totally different when you got to live in an environment, especially with the tough kind of Spanish that Chile has to offer. And there's countless number of people that I've spoken to, countless people who have just said, I came down prepared. I even had high school Spanish or this, that, and the other, and I got here, and this stuff didn't help me at all, or it helped very little. I thought I knew something, and then when I got here, I was just blown away. And for months, I've been sitting here trying to understand. It's a common tale, folks. But it helps. The more you can get prepared with vocabulary words and knowing the grammar structure before you come down, getting a verb book and just memorizing those declensions of verbs. All that stuff is helpful. And if you can come down just memorizing 1,000 nouns so that you can read some things and get books from either Argentina or Chile, that's the closest Spanish to Chile is Argentina in its nouns, memorize those so that you have, running start. But hearing the way they say the words and, the speed in which they speak, it's very difficult to be able to discern. And they're not going to slow down for you. They're not going to give you a break. As you might like, and it's really frustrating for a lot of folks. So, and probably for most folks, I'd say. I did have somebody come in who's an interested investor who actually speaks fairly well in Spanish, had a lot of training in it, has been in other countries, and he's the exception, not the rule, and he's been having some adjustment issues as well, but he's going to be fine. That kind of a person who's actually fluent in another country that comes here, in 6 months, they're going to be up to speed and doing quite well here in Chile. But for a newcomer, be well prepared. All right, well, we've got a few things going on in the country here that I wanted to discuss, and one of them is this strike going on. Many people have actually written to me, well, I hope you guys are okay. You have this major Longshoreman Strike going on in San Antonio and also affects Talcahuano near Concepcion. And that's true, there is a strike. The strike is, in case you're not wondering what it's about, what it's over, there's a half-hour unpaid lunch that amounts to about $7 for these longshoremen. And they passed a law in 2005 saying they should get paid for this, and that nobody paid them. And sometimes, the former presidential candidate from the right, Mate, who's the ministra de Trabajo, the labor minister, she said, look, you guys after from 2013 on get paid. So they've been getting paid since 2013, but they're complaining that for those 7 years prior, they didn't get paid that half hour every day. It adds up, I guess, for every worker, $7 that they're missing. And so they decided to go on strike about this, and the state's saying, well, you should go back to the private companies and get this money. And they're saying these guys are responding to the contracts with, really with the state in one way or the other, and so you guys should pay instead. And so there's kind of this infighting going on. But in the meantime, fruits and vegetables can't get offshore, and they can't come onshore. So they're out there in their refrigeration, or some are not, maybe even rotting. And there's some other kinds of problems going on with vehicles. You can't bring vehicles onshore for sale. So there's a considerable amount of trouble being caused by this, and it's gone on several days. I'm not even sure if it's even more than a week now. In fact, it is more than a week, but I'm not sure how many weeks it's been since the actual beginning of this. I don't remember the exact date, but it's been a considerable amount of time here, and it's beginning to have some effect. So, at any rate, just looking at some of my notes here as I found in the paper when I was reading up on the most current stuff, that is the issue. It hasn't affected us per se here in Chile still, because fruit, we import very little, if any, except for very specialty item fruits and vegetables. Chile is an abundance of agriculture. But as far as exports, that's an issue for us, especially here in these summer months. It makes a big difference. But as far as our lifestyle here in Santiago, we didn't even notice there's a port strike. The companies, of course, are making big complaints because they're losing a huge amount of money by having the strike. And at some point, I imagine somebody's going to go up and pay these guys to get the thing settled and over with. So anyway, that's one little bit. Also, want to give a heads up. Well, I'll tell you what, we're coming close to the break here. Rather than talk about that, let me just mention that I was going to talk about our conference call. I'll talk about it when I get back. Fires are still going on. They're being put out, but they're still around. If you're still hearing about the fires going on in Chile, yeah, they're still here. We're still getting some smoke, but not as bad as before. You're listening to Red Hot Chili. This is your host, Dr. John Cobin, and we'll be back in just a minute.